It's my very great pleasure to welcome to our conversation Anna Pasternak. Anna is a friend of mine, an amazing woman. She runs the Australian Jewish News. She's a dual Australian-Israeli citizen. She and I have no trouble filling hours of conversation as we talk about all things Israel, anti-Semitism, Jewish history, Australia, all the various things that are close to our hearts. And so given everything that's been going on in the Middle East, I thought it would be wonderful to have a chat with Anna. So Anna, great to talk. How are you feeling this afternoon?
Thank you for having me, Mark. I am feeling, wow, it has been a big weekend. What can I say? We've not just a big weekend, we've had about 8 days now that has been unrelentingly extraordinary. It is a moment of immense pride and a feeling of strength and cautious optimism. Maybe we can start to see a different future than the past. We definitely are in uncharted waters and a very, very historic moment, I would say.
So you used the word pride right out of the gate. Tell me what are you feeling proud about? I mean, it's, that's not a word that's bandied around a lot in the media when everyone's discussing what's happened. It's not a lot of people coming out and going, man, I feel proud. So what's behind that?
I think what's behind it is the performance of the IDF. I've spent a lot of time with various units of the IDF and speaking to soldiers, and to see the integrity and the moral clarity that has been demonstrated over the last 20 months after the horrific massacres of the 7th of October 2023. We looked like we were really on our knees in those first few days and weeks of the war. And my theory is that it was really quite an existential moment where I believed that if Hamas had the backing of Hezbollah at the time, which are Iranian proxies in Lebanon, and if Syrian forces had joined in, if the Houthis had joined in from Yemen, and if the Iranians had joined in. So if we had had a fully coordinated attack, we did have coordination, but it wasn't to that extent. And if we had, I think we were looking at a very, very different outcome. And it was a terrifying moment where I think most Jews around the world thought there is another Holocaust around the corner. We really thought we were in a big, big mess and that we were in trouble. To see the soldiers and the IDF and Israel's stamina and strength during these horrifically challenging times and at great personal sacrifice, to see them 20 months into this, turn this around and now be in a position where they have gone into Iran and managed to, with the support of the Americans, we just saw yesterday, managed to take apart and dismantle this incredibly dangerous threat to Israel and to the free world. It fills me with immense pride. I mean, I don't know a more resilient people. I don't know a people that can keep generation after generation, no matter what is thrown at them, dare I say us, whatever is thrown at us, we seem to somehow, and I can't answer why, but we seem to somehow find a way out. And I also think that my family and most Australian Jews, they come from Holocaust survivor backgrounds. My family actually were lucky enough not in the Holocaust, but they were refugees. And most Australian Jews do have a Holocaust background. And to see that in 70 years, we've managed to go from being really an endangered species, a creature that was tormented and tortured and slaughtered wholesale, with the world standing by with impunity. There was no repercussions for this horrific and extraordinary and outrageous event. The Holocaust is just something so unique and so grotesque. And to see us so vulnerable, and now in 2025, to see us with the most extraordinary military capability, not because it was given to us, not because anyone handed this to us on a silver platter. Jews, desperate Jews, came, those that weren't obviously in the land already, came in droves from around the world out of necessity out of a need to survive. They arrived in Israel and they built this incredible economy, incredible country, a multicultural, diverse, and democratic country. Some would argue too democratic, but that's another subject. And it is certainly, I would say it's a miracle. And then to see us on the weekend be able to get in the driver's seat and say to our enemies, don't F with us. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. Seriously, for thousands of years, everyone's pushed us around and done whatever they wanted to us because we didn't have an army to defend us. And this is an immensely important moment where we can say, yes, we are suffering. Yes, we were hurt. We were badly hurt. And we are being hurt still. We're losing soldiers. We're losing civilians. Property is being damaged. People are running all night to shelters with their families. They're in hiding. They're fearful. I speak to friends on the ground, and we can talk a bit about that in a minute. But there's no question that we should feel, at the minimum, immense pride in our tiny, tiny nation, which I believe is the 40th the size of Iran, and is a third the size of Tasmania, if that's a better analogy for the local community.
Yeah, and in terms of population size, 1/10 the size of Iran. So, I mean, I always think, 1948, the first war when the Arab nations attacked Israel was 1948, right? So, well, they'd been trying to stop the formation of the state, well, really for a very long time before that. But in 48, you had people who 3 years before had been liberated from concentration camps, who are then going into fight for the new land of Israel, and then beat the Arab nations who wanted to exterminate them. I mean, it's an extraordinary story. I think against the incredibly well-funded, vicious global campaign to delegitimize and attack Israel and make out that all Israels are Nazis and terrible genocide, baby killing perpetrators of evil. I've been saying for the last 20 months to any Jewish folk who'll listen and anyone else who'll listen, don't lose your confidence in the Israeli project, in this culture, in this civilization that has been birthed in this little corner of the Middle East. I mean, it really is extraordinary what's been accomplished. I mean, it's not perfect, but no one's claiming it's perfect.
It is far from perfect.
And this war, this has not been fought by a standing army of professional soldiers. This is a war fought by reservists. That's an extraordinary thing, isn't it?
Yes, it is extraordinary. And, to sit on a train and you go, I don't know if people understand, but everybody serves in the Israeli army who is not exempt. There are some exemptions, but generally most people serve from 18 to 21. Both male and female serve. The girls do 2 years and the boys do 3. The army is an integral part of society. It's like nowhere else in the world. Your sons, your daughters, your family are all active in either service or they do reserve duty until they're 40 years old. So when you get on a train in Israel, it is totally normal to sit next to a soldier. I mean, that's just a normal thing. And so when I was in Israel just a few months ago, and you sit down on the train and I often sit next to soldiers because I feel even safer next to them. So I sit next to a soldier who's heavily armed, and you look down at his boots. They wear these combat boots, and you can see they've got mud and soil on them. And you know that soldier, who's between the ages of 18 to 21 usually, has just exited from the Gaza Strip, or possibly from Lebanon earlier in the war. And you see, it's so real to you. You look at their feet and you just think, God, they've really just boys protecting us every single day. They're just regular heroes to us. And there's such immense pride and love in those sacrifice that these just young men are making. They're just straight out of school. Just sweet boys who have just finished school, and girls. You see girls in combat, of course, too. I've seen girls, combat soldiers, who also are wearing exactly the same things. They've got a weapon across their bodies, and they wearing the combat boots. And it's part of the culture. It's not something we want. It's something we wish we didn't need. It's something we wish we never had to create. But the IDF is an incredible force built on the determination to survive. will not let people annihilate us. They've tried again and again and again, and they can keep on trying, and it hurts us, and we suffer, and we don't like it, and we don't want it. There's nothing that we pray for more than for peace. And definitely we have come together at this very, very, very difficult time. And that's why I feel proud.
Yeah, yeah. And what's the what's the vibe as you talk in Israel at the moment? It's unthinkable for us sitting here, like we're both in Sydney, the idea that ballistic missiles the size of like a bus might be landing in downtown Sydney. Like that's what Israel is living with. What's the mood like? Is it buoyant? Is it scared? I mean, when you talk to folk, what are you
I would
hearing?
say, look, pre yesterday and pre the last week with the Iranian offensive. Generally, people are cautious and they're worried and they're concerned and they're fearful. These ballistic missiles have been a new experience for Israel generally. The sort of missiles that were being used before these ballistic missiles were activated, they were dangerous for sure, but they certainly were not as dangerous as these missiles are proving to be. So since the Iran offensive, it has definitely ratcheted the anxiety right up. People are being woken 2-3 times a night, and the Iranians are deliberately doing this. The reason that they're doing this is it really is psychological warfare. When you're asleep, your children are asleep, maybe you've got elderly relatives with you, maybe you've got disabled relatives with you. Imagine that you're being woken at 1 a.m. You're having to lift a sleeping toddler out of their deep sleep, quickly rush them, rush other kids, stumbling around in the dark, getting to a bomb shelter or a safe room, depending what is available to you. You're also looking for your pets. You're trying to find your dog, cat. You know, it's pandemonium, and it's incredibly distressing. Now multiply that by 3 times a night, and multiply that by over a week of that going on, and you've got an exhausted people. The fact is, people are injuring themselves, they're falling. A lot of elderly people have actually injured themselves very badly just getting to bomb shelters. Some people are now sleeping in shopping centers in tents so that they don't have to make the move in the middle of the night. It's just too hard. So
Yeah.
basically it's a very stressful time. I've heard from friends who I can hear their voice has completely changed, their tone. They really, really are extremely frightened, and the damage is extensive. And it breaks everyone's heart to see the gratuitous attempt to kill civilians. It's not even that they're not even aiming for military infrastructure like we are. They're aiming directly at the heart of civilian populations. And even more appalling, and a war crime to boot, is that they struck Soroka Hospital, which is a massive hospital in the south of Israel, which services all the communities around there.
So tell me, has the mood changed since America's strikes? Are people feeling like, what's the vibe? Are they did that lift everyone's spirits? They go, yeah, we're not alone. America's come to the party. Maybe this thing will end, or is there fear that it's actually now going to escalate and become this all-out Middle Eastern war?
I think there's immense relief. There was much talk about whether Donald Trump had abandoned us to our fate, whether he was really going to stand shoulder to shoulder with us, or whether he had decided that he was not prepared for personal reasons to intervene on our behalf. And the fact that he has ordered this decisive attack has really brought a completely new perspective to Israelis. I think most people feel incredible relief that we do have a really, really important and close ally in the Trump administration. We are incredibly blessed and almost incredulous that Donald Trump has proven himself to be really great friend, if not the greatest friend to Israel that we have ever had. It seems to be like a new paradigm that the Trump administration seems to be establishing with all of its allies. And I think what they're basically saying, and what Trump has shown over the weekend's action, is that they stand shoulder to shoulder with their allies, but they won't do the heavy lifting. They expect the ally, whether it's Taiwan or whether it's Israel or any other one of their allies that has a threat to them, They expect them to do the fighting. They say to them, we're with you, but you will fight this. We will help you. We will arm you, and we will supply the weapons and the training if need be. But you will do the fighting. You'll do the heavy lifting. And if need be, we will come in and do the final punch. They're right at the end to do a particular thing for you, but we're not going to be there on the ground holding your hand. You show us that you want to survive. You show us that you're strong enough to do this, and then we're there with you.
I mean, because Trump's a nationalist. That's actually the position of a nationalist, that nation states need to have it within themselves to defend themselves. And then, thank God, Israel has an ally like the United States. I mean, it worries me a bit. What would happen if we faced a threat here in Australia?
What would happen here with one ballistic missile, one, we've hundreds, one ballistic missile heading for, let's say, the CBD of Sydney and slamming into a high-rise building. I can't even imagine what the reaction of the population would be. Israel's been living like this for 20 months with relentless attacks. And way before that, too, there were missiles coming in from Hamas for years already. That's what makes Israelis both resilient and incredibly strong, but it also makes them a bit crazy. It would drive anybody normal crazy. I mean, it's a crazy, crazy environment where you have, you have kindergartens built into bomb shelters. What kind of world is this? And the world watches this and thinks it's acceptable. Is it normal that every 18-year-old has to go and serve and spend 3 years in the army to defend their country, or 2 years if you're a girl?
Yeah.
Is any of this normal? No, it's not.
Well, it's normal when you're a country at war. And the thing that Israel's done is it's established a Jewish homeland in the Middle East, and in doing so, has effectively stuck the middle finger up at the jihadists, the Muslim Brotherhood theology that says you cannot possibly have a Jewish state in the Middle East. It has to be ruled by Islam. And so they are at war with not just one country, but with actually a lot of people who believe in an eliminationist ideology. So that's why it's actually so critical for Israel to win and not to give up. It's critical for us. It's critical for Christians. I mean, I really believe this. Now, I don't know if you saw the news, but on the weekend, while everyone's looking at what the United States is doing in Iran, two jihadists attacked a church in Damascus in Syria, walked into a Sunday morning service, blew themselves up, killed over 20 people. So Israel is fighting evil. I mean, this jihadist ideology of conquering the world through eliminating your enemies by terror and any means possible, it has to be defeated. I mean, Israel is showing, and the United States is showing, that they're not militarily strong enough to defeat Israel. And then we have to show them they're not culturally strong enough to defeat our Western culture and civilization. And so it's critical. Yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, it's staggering to me to see the millions of people around the world who have supported this jihadist ideology. Not even Muslims. I mean, we're excluding, there's 2 billion Muslims nearly in the world. Forget that community. And of course, that's broken up into many different ideologies in itself. But for example, white Australians to be marching through the streets, supporting Hamas and supporting Islamic radicals is simply astounding. We've seen it again and again on the streets, and it has been one of the most sad and pathetic sights I've seen in my life. I mean, I just can't believe what I see, and I can only put it down to anti-Semitism, to be honest, because why on earth would anybody want to promote and embolden an ideology that is antithesis to everything that we believe in, everything we stand for, and everything we want in our lives?
Well, I mean, on the weekend, you had people marching through Sydney and Melbourne with pictures of the Ayatollah and, supporting Iran. And you go, your hatred of the Jews overrides your own sense of self-preservation. I mean, it has to be that.
Exactly.
It's this. I mean, it just perplexes me. And I see normally rational people engaging in behavior that objectively is just completely irrational and self-defeating. I mean, do we really, I mean, who of those crowds marching would really want to live, as a
None
woman
of
or a
them.
gay person or a liberal young uni
None of
student
them.
in Iran or in Gaza under Hamas? I mean,
Let
it's,
alone feminists who are supposed feminists who are marching, or gays who are marching.
yeah.
Who on earth would want to be part of this movement? It is either a completely masochistic self-hatred, or it's a naivety or a stupidity. I think it's probably all of the above.
Yeah, and a hatred of Israel, a hatred of the Jews. I mean, I think there is. It's somehow this existence of Israel has become. Well, I mean, Khomeini said that their strategy was to make Palestine the social justice issue of the Western world,
Well,
which
they
is just
succeeded.
insane because the Palestinians, objectively, compared to so many people in the world, have actually been treated pretty well. They've been offered their own state. I mean, they're better off than the
A
Kurds.
dozen
It
times.
doesn't like, here's a land you can live in peace. Just stop trying to kill us. And no, 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 we've got to kill you. And somehow now the West has, well, so many people around the world have bought into this absolute lie.
In all this conversation, what makes me so sad is that in the end of the day, the Iranian people, the vast majority of them, are living under a regime they detest, a regime that has destroyed countless lives, a regime that subjugates its women, a real apartheid where
Yeah,
the
yeah.
women simply do not have the same rights as the men. And it is such a tragic situation. And instead of saying, here's a movement, here's a moment in history where good can prevail, where the IRGC can be overthrown and replaced with something better, and that women and men will have better human rights, better quality of life, more safety and freedom from this oppression. A vast number of people around the world are more interested in attacking America and Israel than they are in supporting the freedom of this embattled nation who have suffered horrendous abuse for nearly 50 years.
I'm not optimistic because the one thing the regime is excellent at, that well, they're clearly not excellent at defending themselves against Israel, but they are excellent at oppressing their own people. They are so ruthless and vicious. I mean, the stories I've heard in the Christian community of Iranian women in particular who convert to Christianity and then, get brutalized, tortured, raped, imprisoned, and killed.
But where are the voices? Where are the women's voices? Where are the feminists of the world screaming out,
Yeah.
save our Iranian sisters? Where are they? The silence is deafening. It's the same silence as we had from the feminist movement after October, where they refused, including the women's UN bodies, refused to acknowledge the sadistic brutality of the Hamas terrorists who raped, tortured, kidnapped, and murdered countless Israeli women.
Yeah.
And again, the same silence from the feminists on Iran. And in the end of the day, I just can't hear the voices. Hello, where are you, women? Why aren't you marching in the tens of thousands through the streets, demanding the release of your sisters in these prisons and the freedom of women to choose whether they cover their hair or they don't cover their hair? Where are they?
Well, what we actually should be seeing is hundreds of thousands of people on the streets all around the Western world marching against jihadist Islam, actually marching against the oppression of women and really saying yeah, marching in favor of what the US has done, marching in support of Israel, marching in
Right.
support of regime
That's right.
change, marching in
That's right.
support of our brothers and sisters being massacred in northern Nigeria. I mean, it goes on all around the world, and so there's silence because somehow I don't know if people are scared, naive.
What have they got to be scared of? We're here, forget the rest of the world. We're here in Australia. It's a liberal democracy. People are allowed to say what they want to say and be people scared of but their own shadow. In the end of the day, it is pure cowardice to sit by and do nothing in the face of such evil.
What's the feeling in the Jewish community in Australia as you travel around? What's the vibe amongst the Jewish folk?
You mean
here.
since the weekend or before the Iranian? We've got like a before and an after. I think you would hear immense pride and a feeling of renewed hope. I think you would also hear fear, concern as to what the retribution will be from Iran following these strikes. They've been humiliated, and we know that generally humiliation in the Muslim world
Mm,
doesn't end well. It's not
yeah.
a feeling that they tolerate very well. So there's immense fear as to what will come, especially in regards to what will come to Israel. But there is a lot of feeling of relief, and also there is still an incredibly gaping pain in all our hearts for the hostages. And
Yeah.
we know full well, and so does Hamas and our enemies, they know full well that in our culture, no one is left behind. And we still have, I think it's 54, or maybe it's 50, 52 probably. We just had three
Just
bodies
yeah.
returned. I think it's around 52 souls now that are unaccounted for. And we cannot end this war and move on and start healing without accounting for those people. They are part of us very fundamentally. If you speak to Jews, they'll tell you that they feel like these hostages are part of their family. And we're a very tiny community. Just bear in mind, we're about 16 million people throughout the world. In Israel, there are 8 million Jews and 2 million Arabs that live in Israel. And people think, oh, the Jews, this is an enormous
Yeah, yeah,
community and they're so powerful. Tiny, we don't make up 1% of the global population. In fact, we don't make up 0.1% of the global population. We're a tiny community spread around the world. And we're very vulnerable. We have been very vulnerable because of our tiny numbers and because we didn't have a homeland. We also are in a situation where we have a tiny, tiny piece of land, like I mentioned before, a third the size of Tasmania. It's a tiny little strip of land with immense history and archaeology and connection to the Jewish story and the Jewish religion. But it's in a sea of Muslim countries that surround us on every border. We're completely surrounded. And then, of course, the Gaza Strip with Hamas happily slaughtering people over there. So we're surrounded by enemies, and we've even got enemies further afield who like to kill us, like the Houthis, who don't even have a border with us but still join in the fun. And then we've got Iran, who don't have a border with us but still insist on slaughtering us. So this tiny, tiny bastion of democracy, the only liberal democracy in the Middle East, is fighting on every front and doing the best it can under exceptional circumstances. I don't think any other.
Well, it's interesting. It reminds me a little bit of the Finnish war against the Russians in terms of the mismatch in size. The difference being the rest of the world didn't turn against Finland and say, "Oh, you terrible Finns, you're choosing to fight back
Yes,
against Russia. Oh, you evil Finns,
yes,
let's all hate on the Finns."
yes.
So, what do Jewish folk here in Australia feel in terms of their own safety and the anti-Semitism and the hatred we've seen on the streets of Sydney? So, is that still a concern in the Jewish community? Is that a concern for folk as they look
Definitely,
around?
definitely. I think many in the community have been utterly shocked at what they see as a complete inversion of what should have happened. So on the 7th of October, following these horrific attacks that left 1,200 civilians dead, we thought that that would naturally bring about this incredible empathy, a huge communal hug for the Jewish community. We're so sorry. We stand with you. We love you. We'll protect you. We know what terrible things have been done to you in the past historically, and this is an abomination beyond human comprehension. But we got the absolute opposite. We got an opposite reaction. We got the absolute gaslighting of the community. So what they do is they keep inverting the truth. And it's the most despicable thing to do to the victim of a crime. It's like saying a woman who's been raped, you wanted to rape him, didn't you?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
really
that's right.
sick.
It's your fault for wearing a short skirt. That's right.
Or it's your fault somehow. But
Exactly.
even more than that, it's the intent was
Yeah,
actually your intent. It
you
was
wanted.
your intent to commit a genocide.
Huh. Well, it's inexplicable except for this kind of hatred of the Jewish people that just lies dormant beneath the surface in humanity, just waiting to be,
Why,
you know,
Mark? Why?
why?
Why? What is it?
Why? Well, I think it's
Is it just that we won't go away? Is that what it is?
no, I think it's inexplicable apart from a cosmic battle between good and evil. I think I in the end have to resort to spiritual answers. I can't make sense of it any other way. There's no non-spiritual reason to explain this hatred. It's because it's so persistent. I always say I think the ongoing persecution of the Jewish people for 3,000 years is inexplicable apart from the existence of like a metaphysical evil. There's something evil that gets in that animates people and works with them. And then I go, well, actually, I think the survival of the Jewish people is inexplicable apart from there being a good God who hasn't given up on them yet. I mean, you even see this. I mean, the resurrection of the state of Israel in 1948, the fact that, Jews won't be herded into gas chambers defenseless anymore, that there's a nation state, a resurrection of the language, of the culture, of the people.
These are and it comes at a huge, huge sacrifice to Israelis. Don't think it comes for free. I know people who, well, I know one gentleman I'm thinking of who was a spy for 6 years, 3 years. He was an undercover spy in the in Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, as it's known. And as an Arab, he comes from an Iraqi family, a Jewish Iraqi family. So you know that all the Jews of Iraq were expelled, and there were hundreds of thousands of them. But basically, they were ethnically cleansed from all of the Arab lands, and it was incredibly dangerous for them to stay because they were told that they would be slaughtered. So they fled mostly to Israel. And this particular gentleman I'm thinking of was a spy for 6 years, embedded in Gaza, and for 3 years in Gaza and 3 years in the West Bank. And he he was shot, he was injured, he survived somehow, he was brought back, and he's a very, very damaged person. It doesn't come, these heroes are heroic on one level, but they pay the price. They often have terrible insomnia, they can't sleep, they don't have good relationships, they're very paranoid, they're very anxious a lot of the time. Not surprisingly, when you've been living as an Arab in the middle of the Gaza Strip, when you're a Jew from north of Tel Aviv and originally from Iraq.
I was in Perth last week, and I spoke at an event at a church, and we had a fantastic crowd. And the guy who most strongly resonated with everything I said was actually a Iraqi Christian who fled here about 4 years ago. And it was just fascinating talking to him. He just said he couldn't believe how Australians didn't value Australia. He said he had after 2 years of being here, he said he would have fought and died for Australia. He said it's just the most extraordinary country.
It is, but freedom isn't free. And we need to fight for freedom sometimes. Most of the time we don't, thank God, or not, certainly not in this country, but at the moment we do. We're in a fight for freedom. We're in a fight for democracy. We're in a fight for our values against some very dark forces that have taken a good foothold in the West.
Happening. So what do you think everyday Australians should be thinking, doing, feeling going forward?
I think Australians just have to know that they are part of this moment in history where I believe that the West is under attack, and our values, our love of democracy, our belief in freedom of speech and in all these human rights that we hold so dear are having to be fought for at the moment. There are periods in time where we don't have to fight, but now we're fighting for freedom, and for those freedoms that we really respect and we have learned to have the luxury of having. They're a luxury. They don't come for free. They don't just get handed to you. In history, there's been times where we've had to fight for what we believe is good and what we believe is right. And this is one of those moments. So what would I say to Australians? I would say, don't be complacent. Freedom isn't free. Join the fight. It doesn't have to be a very active fight, but just being aware of what's happening around you, appreciating the struggles of Israel, of the Jewish community as a minority that's really on the cutting edge of this fight, is what we need at the moment. We just need people to have awareness that this is going on and to raise their voice if they can and are willing to. And certainly not to cower and not to be scared. The stronger we are, and the more united we are, the faster this will be resolved.
And practically the other incredibly important thing they can do is go to our website, neveragainisnow.com.au, sign up to join the movement, because we need to realize we're not alone. We're building a grassroots movement around the country to do all the things you've just said. So thank you so much for chatting. I'm sure we'll talk again.
Thank you.
All the honor to you for the work you're doing and
Thank you, Mark.
representing the Jewish
Can't
community.
even. And just the last message, I just want to say that on behalf of the Jewish community, I just can't tell you what it means to us as a community, as a small community, as a minority, to have the support of Christians and non-Christians around the country who stand with us at this incredibly challenging time. And we really and genuinely and in a very heartfelt way appreciate every bit of support that we from you. So thank you.